I have to start today's video with a disclaimer. Don't go to Dudleytown, Connecticut. This is not a prank, it's not a stunt, it's not clickbait, it's the truth. I'm confident that at the end of this video, there are gonna be people that want to go. Don't do it. One, it's illegal to go to Dudleytown, it's private property. And two, as you'll see in today's video, there is a reason why people abandoned Dudleytown. It is not a safe place for people. But before we get into the story about Dudleytown, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So, if that's of interest to you, the next time the like button is playing an intense game of online FIFA, wait until they get the lead and then unplug their Wi-Fi. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. It was a bright summer day in 1906, and Dr. William C. Clark and his wife Harriet were driving slowly through a beautiful part of northwestern Connecticut called Litchfield County. Litchfield is a rural, very hilly area with lots of winding country roads, and the Clarks were there to try to scout out an area to build their second home. The couple lived full-time in New York City, where Dr. Clark was an oncologist, which is a cancer doctor, and he was also a professor at the Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons. And while the Clarks' lives were very exciting and fulfilling in the city, they were also very hectic and chaotic. And so the reason they had settled on Litchfield as the place to look for a location for their second home is because it was the total opposite of the city. It was quiet, it was peaceful, it was perfect. And so as this couple from New York City drove along these winding backcountry roads, they eventually reached this beautiful covered wooden bridge, and after they drove across it, they got this view up onto this mountainside off to their right, and high up on this mountain was this huge, shaded, beautiful forest. And they saw there was a road that appeared to kind of spider off and go into these woods. Now, the couple had no idea what was up there, but it was just so beautiful, and they were immediately so drawn to it that they decided they would go check it out and see if maybe there was a spot for their second home in these woods. And so Dr. Clark took the car and he went up this access road, and very quickly as they began climbing up this hillside, the road became very bumpy and overgrown. It was pretty obvious that not many cars were driving into these woods, and so before they even reached the tree line, Dr. Clark had to pull the car over and park it on the side of the road, and then he and Harriet got out, and then on foot they continued up towards the forest. And once the couple actually entered the forest, immediately the sunlight faded because the canopy over their heads was so thick, and the air became cool and refreshing. And after walking for only a couple of minutes, the forest, which at first seemed very still and quiet, suddenly became alive. They could hear birds chirping and animals running around and insects buzzing. And then up ahead, they saw there was this field off to the side of the road that was full of all these wild apple trees growing in all different directions. And as they got closer, they saw there was just a deer right in the middle of the apple trees eating apples directly off the branches. And then just past all these apple trees, the couple began passing these huge, beautiful patches of roses and lilacs and bright yellow bitter tansy flowers that lined the road. And then before long, the couple was stepping over these babbling brooks, and off in the distance, they could hear the sound of running water like fresh spring water coming down off the mountain. And then as the sun did begin to poke through the canopy above them, it almost looked like the forest was sparkling. Literally. This forest was sitting on a hillside, and the hillside, which was made up of rock, had mica inside of it. And mica is a kind of mineral that when sunlight hits it, it almost looks like it's shimmering. And of course, there were the owls. As Dr. Clark and his wife walked farther and farther into this beautiful forest, they heard more and more owls hooting off in the distance. And to the Clarks, this made the forest feel enchanted. It was like the owls were personally greeting them. By the time the couple had turned around and begun heading back to their car, they had already made up their mind that they were going to build their second home in that forest. And so, after returning to their home in New York, they promptly put in the paperwork to purchase 1,000 acres inside of that Connecticut forest. And that forest had a name. It was called Dark Entry, and it was named that because it looked like from the outside, the forest was basically dark all the time. There was shade cast on it from mountains nearby, and then also the canopy inside of Dark Entry is exceptionally thick. At one time, there actually had been a town inside of Dark Entry Forest. However, all the people who had lived in that town were now all gone. The only remnants of this town were a couple of crumbling stone walls and a couple of home foundations that were scattered about the Dark Entry Forest floor. The Clarks had seen some of these ruins as they walked along this overgrown path through the forest, but they weren't concerned. Instead, they felt like these ruins actually added some charm to the forest. After the land purchase was finalized, Dr. Clark began looking for local builders in Connecticut who could help him build this second home inside of Dark Entry Forest. But no matter how much money he offered these local Connecticut builders, they all said no. Now, none of them gave a straight answer to Dr. Clark about why they were turning him down, so Dr. Clark just kind of assumed that, hey, this project is not huge, it's just one house, and the forest is pretty isolated and hard to get to, and so he thought, probably these builders think it's not worth the effort. But Dr. Clark was not discouraged. He decided he would just build the house himself. After all, he was a very handy, competent guy who had grown up on a farm in New Jersey, and so he knew how to build things. And so, for the next several months, Dr. Clark would travel from New York City to Dark Entry Forest every weekend, and he would build this home. First, he cut down this massive swath of hemlock trees on this one flat patch of his land, and then with all this lumber he had cut down, he built his rustic two-story cabin on this flat part of his land. And then nearby on this hilltop, there was a freshwater spring at the top, and so he laid piping from the spring into his cabin so they could have fresh water. And then at the bottom of this nearby hill was this brook, and Dr. Clark loved just standing and watching this brook because inside of it were all these trout that would dart all around. And so Dr. Clark built a swimming pool with beautiful mossy embankments right up against this brook so he could sit there and watch the fish. By Thanksgiving of that year, the cabin was done, and so Dr. Clark and his wife Harriet, they stayed at the cabin to celebrate the holiday. And as they were sitting in their swimming pool watching the trout and listening to the owls hoot off in the distance, they both agreed that this second home was like their little piece of heaven. So every summer from there on out, and every major holiday that they could manage it, the Clarks would travel to their home in Dark Entry Forest, and they would swim and hike and relax, and they'd watch the leaves on the mountainside turn from green to bright yellows and oranges and reds. It was perfect. That is, until 1918. That summer, the couple was in their second home in the forest when Dr. Clark was suddenly called back to New York to attend to a medical emergency. Harriet was very upset at the prospect of suddenly being left alone in this cabin in the middle of the forest by herself for who knows how many days. And so when she dropped her husband off at the nearby train platform, she made him promise that he would come back soon, and he said he would. And then Dr. Clark got on the train, it took off, and Harriet just stood there with her arms crossed, watching it as it chugged along off into the distance. From his comfortable seat on that train, Dr. Clark had no idea that his wife was about to endure a nightmare while he was gone. We've all been there. Your guests are on their way over to your house for your big New Year's Eve party, and right as they pull into your driveway, you realize you've overnogged your smoked chicken gallbladder eggnog. And so with minutes to spare, you leap out of the window, shattering the glass and cutting yourself up badly, and then you jog up to Canada and dive into Baffin Bay, and you jump on top of a narwhal, and after some intense underwater hand-to-flipper combat, you take its horn off its head, and you beat it to death. You take its horn, and then you swim back to land, and you jog back to your house, and you leap in through a different window, shattering the glass, and then after you stand up, you make your way into the kitchen, and you whip up a quick narwhal horn iced soup right as your guests are walking through the front door. Crisis averted, right? Wrong. Smoked chicken gallbladder eggnog and narwhal horn iced soup are both just gross, so your party was doomed either way. But you know what isn't gross? HelloFresh. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal service that delivers actually good-tasting food right to your doorstep. With over 35 recipes available every week, there is something to please everyone. Choose from family-friendly, fit and wholesome, even veggie. Plus, you can easily customize your meals or sides, upgrading your proteins, or even adding a protein to your veggie meal. And if you're going to be traveling this New Year's, HelloFresh can accommodate your schedule. You can change your preferences, delivery day, and your address in just a few clicks. So, if you're ready to stop garnishing your holiday parties with trash food and drink, then sign up for HelloFresh today. To do that, go to HelloFresh.com and use code MrBallen21 for 21 free meals and free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com and use code MrBallen21 for 21 free meals and free shipping. Okay, back to the story. When the Clarks bought their 1,000 acres in the Dark Entry Forest, they did virtually no research on the forest or the surrounding area. If they had, they very likely would not have purchased that land. You see, the town that used to be inside of the Dark Entry Forest, that was now just ruins that the Clarks saw when they first walked around inside of the forest, was abandoned for a very specific reason. It was cursed. At least that's what the locals say. And in fact, that was the reason why no builders in the area were willing to go with Dr. Clark into the forest to go build his house, because they were too scared to go anywhere near the ruins of this cursed town. This town, which was known as Dudleytown, was first settled sometime in the 1740s. At first, it was just a couple of people and a couple of small structures, but pretty quickly, 30 families had moved in and it was a thriving little town. But as the 1700s came to a close, terrible things began to happen to residents of this town. First, there was the Carter family. They moved to Dudleytown in 1759, and shortly after arriving there, 6 members of their family all died suddenly from cholera. The remaining branch of the Carter family was so grief-stricken from their losses that they left Dudleytown and went to New York, where they resettled. But almost immediately after getting set up there, Native Americans raided their property and massacred them, and the 3 people that survived this massacre were 3 of the kids, and they were all kidnapped and taken away. In 1792, a Dudley resident named Hollister died suddenly. Now, we don't know if he fell off a roof or if he was murdered, no one really knows, but what we can agree on is that his untimely death happened in the home of a man named Tanner. And Tanner, following Hollister's death, suddenly just began obsessively talking about these strange creatures he was seeing out in the woods at night, kind of roaming around the Dark Entry Forest. And he talked about it all the time, and nobody listened to him. And eventually, Tanner went insane, and his daughter had to care for him for the rest of his life. And while Tanner was slowly losing his mind, his next-door neighbor, named Abel, also began reporting that he was seeing weird creatures roaming around the tree line all around the town. And as Abel continued to report seeing these strange creatures lurking in the shadows, he too slowly went mad and had to be cared for until his death. In the early 1800s, a famous Revolutionary War hero, General Herman Swift, who lived in Dudleytown, lost his mind shortly after his wife was struck by lightning. And then in 1813, an unknown epidemic rolled through Dudleytown and killed many of its residents. After that, more and more residents of Dudleytown either died suddenly or died mysteriously, and also more and more residents began coming forward with stories about having seen these strange, shadowy creatures moving around the tree line at night. By about 1900, all the Dudleytown residents had either died or simply just left, abandoning their homes, except for one family, the Brophies. But in quick succession, the Brophy family's sheep all died, then the mother died of tuberculosis, then the 2 sons were accused of theft in a nearby town, and then they just disappeared, leaving one person, John Brophy, the father. But the Brophy family home burned to the ground, and so John, who was overcome with grief, just wandered off into the forest and was never heard from again. At that point, Dudleytown officially became a ghost town. No one lived there. And it was at that point, in 1906, when Dr. Clark and Harriet had their beautiful summer's day walk through the forest and discovered where they wanted to build their second home. So, fast forward back to 1918, and Dr. Clark, he's on his medical emergency leave to New York. It winds up being very quick. He's back on a train within 36 hours, and he pulls into the station right near Dark Entry Forest, and he's expecting to see Harriet waiting on the platform for him. But when the train rolled into the station, she wasn't there. Now, Dr. Clark was not a superstitious person, but for some reason, when he didn't see his wife there, he just felt like something was off. There's no reason she wouldn't have come out here to greet him. I mean, she was worried about being all alone in the cabin, and she knew he was going to be arriving at that moment. And so, feeling a little bit panicked, Dr. Clark left the train station and on foot made his way over to the Dark Entry Forest. And when he got there and began walking on that overgrown road path that led to his house, immediately, as soon as he was within the shade of the trees, he began hearing these owls hooting very loudly off in the distance. Now, normally, the sound of these owls hooting made him feel welcome, but this time he felt scared. He felt like something was wrong up ahead. And so he began jogging through the forest, and it's very dark, and all he can hear is the sound of these owls, and it's getting louder and louder and louder. And then finally, he reaches the clearing where his property is. And at this point, it's a cacophony of owls hooting practically right on top of him, and he looks up towards his house up on this hill, and he sees the front door is slightly open. And so now, with his heart racing, wondering what's going on with his wife, Dr. Clark runs up to his front porch, he gets to the door, and he flings it open the rest of the way, and then right before he stepped into his house, this sudden high-pitched noise began up on the second floor inside of his house. And it was so startling to Dr. Clark that he just froze where he was. And so suddenly it's so loud from the owls all around him and the woods behind him and whatever this noise is that he just stood there unsure what to do. And so as he's sitting there getting the courage up to go investigate his house, he realizes what this high-pitched noise is. It's the sound of maniacal, insane laughter coming from the second floor. Sensing his wife had to be in danger, the doctor charged up the nearby steps up to the second floor, and he could tell this laughter, this high-pitched laughter, was coming from the master bedroom. And so he ran down the short hallway, he got in front of the closed door that led into the master bedroom, he slowly opened it up, and there, in the back corner of his room, was his wife. She was on the ground, rolled up in a ball, facing the door. Her hands were clenched in fists, her eyes were open and unblinking, and her mouth was open wider than was humanly possible. And as he's staring at his wife, wondering what's going on, he realizes this insane, high-pitched laughter is coming from his wife. But it doesn't even look like it's coming out of her. Her chest is just heaving, her mouth is staying open, and the laughter is just coming out of her. And so the doctor just stood there watching his wife, who's staring directly at his eyes. And finally, he just got so scared, he turned and he ran. During Dr. Clark's 36 hours he was away in New York, something happened to his wife. We don't know what it was, but it caused her to lose her mind. The only thing she would talk about was the strange creatures she saw out in the forest. By some accounts, Harriet spent the rest of her life in a mental asylum. By other accounts, she went back with Dr. Clark to New York, where she took her life. Today, Dudleytown is not only still abandoned, but it is also illegal to visit. However, people do still sneak into Dudleytown and walk around the ruins, and many of them have reported feeling these pockets of cold air where there shouldn't be cold air, and also some others have said, as they've been walking, they've felt phantom hands slap them and push them. Some have said they've taken photographs inside of the Dark Entry Forest near Dudleytown, and they've captured strange, shadowy figures that they couldn't see with their naked eye. The famous paranormal couple, Ed and Lorraine Warren, shot a special series in the 1970s inside of the Dark Entry Forest, and they declared the area around Dudleytown was demonically possessed. So that's going to do it. If you got something out of this episode and you haven't done this already, the next time the like button is playing an intense game of online FIFA, wait until they take the lead and then unplug the Wi-Fi. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. We have a podcast called the MrBallen Podcast that puts out brand new exclusive stories on Monday mornings, and on Thursday mornings we put out the remastered audio of our best YouTube videos. Again, the podcast is called the MrBallen Podcast, and it is available exclusively on Amazon Music. Consider donating to our charity. It's called the MrBallen Foundation, and it provides support to victims of violent crime as well as their families. Monthly donors to the MrBallen Foundation Honor Them Society will receive free gifts and exclusive invites to special live events. Go to MrBallen.Foundation and click on Get Involved to join the Honor Them Society today. We have 2 additional YouTube channels, MrBallen Shorts and MrBallen en Espanol. We also post near daily content on Facebook, TikTok, and Snapchat. All of those pages are just called MrBallen. If you want to get in touch with me, please follow me on any major social media platform and then send me a direct message. My username is just @MrBallen, and I really do read the majority of my DMs. Check out our merch at shopmrballen.com, and if you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit, just called MrBallen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, Facebook, other YouTube channels, the podcast, wherever, just know that I really appreciate your support, and until next time, that's gonna do it. See ya.
Let me ask you a question, John. If I told you right now to walk up to any one of these books, now not physically, but mentally, and I want you to flip it open to any page, to look at that page, and to go back and forth and stop at any word, can you see this happen? Close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, envision that occurring. I want to show them at home because people will say later that I changed what I wrote somehow.
All right.
Open your eyes. What was that word?
Hell, dude. This is not staged. This is crazy. I'm blown away. All right, welcome back to Storytime with MrBallen. This was such a hit on the last episode with Tom Segura that we decided we would do more. And today's guest, I gotta be honest, they're gonna blow your mind. Seriously, I went into this experience sort of skeptical. I mean, the things this person does are sort of impossible. I mean, he goes in front of these audiences, which include huge celebrities and professional sports teams, and effectively reads their minds. He certainly blows their minds. And he does it under so much pressure, and he nails it every time. And so we asked him on the show. He's got some amazing stories, and he also truly I have something written on my hand right now that has to do with one of the tricks that he pulled on me, and it's just, I can't believe how this episode went. So really stick around. He's an amazing guy and just a master of his craft. He's gonna blow your mind. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
I'm Oz the Mentalist. I'm here on Storytime with MrBallen. I already know what you're thinking. Stick around.
All right, Oz the Mentalist Perlman.
Yeah.
So you are the world's greatest mentalist. I mean, lately I've seen you pop up all over the place. You were just on Joe Rogan and his reaction to when he guesses his
Pissed
ATM.
off. Joe, you have not seen him that angry in a while. You know, he goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories, and he was like, did you hack me? Have you literally gotten into my life? How did you get my PIN code?
I liked how you were like, hey, let's just be spontaneous. You're like, look, I'm gonna try to guess your ATM PIN code, and you can just see it on Joe. He's like, okay, all right, let's see. And you guessed the first number at some point. You're like, just tell me, is it 1? I think it was 1.
Yep.
And he's like, all right. But then as soon as you began doing it, you could just see his whole mentality, everything shifted, and you can just see as the audience, if this is staged, it's the best staging I've ever seen, because his reaction was not pleasure. It was like, stop.
How'd I do, Joe? Is that your ATM PIN code?
Yeah. That's weird. I'm skeptical because I've got that PIN code in the mail. You know?
People loved seeing it because with Joe, he is the ultimate debunker.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement? Like, no one's going on Joe Rogan and telling Joe what to do.
No.
On the biggest platform in the world, that he is the boss, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And I think that's what captivated the public. Is if he would have been amazed, that's one thing, but he was angry and a little scared.
So tell me, like, what is a mentalist?
Right.
Because I've looked it up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really accomplish the task here. I want to hear from you. And secondarily, how does one know they have the skill to be a mentalist?
So a mentalist is a form of magic, right?
Okay.
This is not in the world of psychics and supernatural. That's not what I pretend to do. I completely make sure that I go out of my way to ensure people understand I'm not claiming to be a psychic I'm not supernatural. Instead, I have a series of skills that I've developed, kind of like an arsenal of tools over decades of learning how people think, and it's grounded in magic. So everyone knows what a magician is, right? You could go to an 8-year-old, they've started to see magic tricks. And when we watch magic, we understand that we're being fooled with our eyes. Somehow this person knows how to do things quickly or to distract me so they do something somewhere else, right? When you cut the woman in half, spoiler alert, guys, I'm not trying to ruin Christmas. There's no Santa Claus. You're not really cutting the woman in half. Somehow you're deceiving me with an illusion. That's the name of the word. That's really what it's called. So magic is all about misdirection and fooling the eyes. This is a specialized subset within magic where it's magic of the mind. Very different. I'm not fooling your eyes because there's no fast hands. There's almost no props. I can show up. I had a show last night in Toronto. Came right here from the airport where I did a show. It was a smaller group, about 400 people, and I show up with nothing. I have a pad of paper and a marker, which if I don't have with me, they can grab for me.
Yeah.
The show isn't props. I'm the show. And so what I've learned to do is know how people think. And by knowing effectively how people think, I'll know what they think. And I'll present that in a very entertaining, fooling, and hopefully memorable manner. So mentalism is psychology, misdirection, deception, influence. It's all these different skills baked into one cake.
And is this something that you always knew you possessed? Some skills that ultimately crystallized and became you being the world's greatest mentalist.
Right, thank you.
Did you have moments in your life before this became a thing where you're like, I have these innate skills that I
Sure.
could refine, but you knew you had them? Or is this something that people could be taught?
Absolutely, people can be taught. So this is a learnable skill, but I would liken it to musical talent, which is innate in a sense, which is you could probably learn to play the piano and do a certain number of songs. Like my 9-year-old plays the piano. If I continued practicing every day for a year, I'd probably get better. But what if I practiced for a decade? Would I ever be good enough to play at Carnegie Hall in New York City? I don't think I would. I think that it's not in me, that innate, God-given gift, whatever you want to call it. You can develop the skills, but when you get to a certain level, there might be a ceiling.
Sure.
So that's the best way to describe it. I have a gift for it, and I've also been very, very persistent. And never underestimate the power of persistence, because mentalism has a steep learning curve, and most people don't have thick enough skin to get through the times when you suck. So magic can be practiced over and over and over in a mirror, and you can improve because it's move-based. It's kind of like playing golf. If you practice your swing, hopefully by the millionth swing, you're going to be great. You might not be Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods. With this, the only way that I can get better is by doing it for an audience. You see what I mean? You can't practice guessing what people are going to think without people. And the first few 100 times you do it, you're going to eat, pardon my French, you're going to eat shit. Like you're not going to be good. There's very few mentalists that started good. And so what tends to happen is you perform, you suck, you go, oh my God, that was painful. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to experience that suffering. So I did much more magic for years. And then I started dipping my toes in the water of mentalism, and then doing a little more, and then doing a little more. And then I was on a show, if we like rewind my career, there was a moment where it was like a fork in the road, where I was on America's Got Talent,
Of course.
Changed my life, and I rebranded myself as, instead of like, quote unquote, O's the magician, I became O's the mentalist. That's how I literally monikered it, because now I differentiated myself from others and decided I'm not doing magic anymore. That was like the crutch. I just started doing just mentalism.
That's interesting. I think one of the things that I've noticed about you and your rise that's currently up and to the right, you really are killing it right now, is in a way I feel like I can relate a little bit to the pressure that you put on yourself, and I'll give you some context. So I know that you're into distance running, in addition to like serious distance running. This dude's done like 153 miles.
It's true.
Regularly runs marathons on a whim. It is a physical feat, no doubt. But it is a mental feat more than anything else.
Agreed. It's more mental than physical. Anybody who tells me, oh, I can't do this, I'm like, that you already set yourself up. I can't. You've already created an obstacle in your mind. It's the wrong viewpoint, and your mind translates into your body. So you telling yourself that creates that. I think, the mind controls the body. I've seen people that are 20, 30 years older than me finish a race that I didn't finish. Objectively, I'm fitter than they are, I'm younger than they are, I'm stronger than they are. Why did they finish when I didn't? Because my mind crumbled.
Yeah.
And you know it. I mean, buds, how many people rang that bell that were probably tough SOBs, but they didn't have it mentally?
It's true. And in fact, the you had said that when you first tried the Spartathlon,
Yep.
you did it twice, right?
I did it twice.
So the Spartathlon's 153 miles,
Yep,
right?
153 miles, 36-hour cutoff. So it's very important. There's races that are longer. Right now, there's a heyday of people running 200-mile races, all this crazy stuff. But this, you can't slow down and walk very much. Like in these other races, they're glorified hikes. No offense to all these people who do 200s. They do it for 4 or 5 days.
Right.
Most of the people are, it's slow. This is running nonstop for a day and a half. You start on a Saturday morning, I'm running till Sunday evening.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And so like what people need to understand about running really long distances, I've done a couple marathons, and marathon is 26.2 miles.
Which is very respectable.
Totally. It's respectable.
Don't you talk down on yourself.
But when you hit about mile 20, people say that's sort of like the halfway point, even though it's not. 26.2, the halfway is 13.
Right.
But at about 20 miles is when your body sort of reaches that point where it's like, okay, we've lost all the glucose stores. We're sort of burning on muscle at this point. It's like you're falling apart. And I remember when I ran a marathon and I hit mile 20, it was like I can barely move and I have 6 miles to go.
Right.
So for anyone that's even thinking, oh, 153 miles, yeah, you just suck it up and go. That's not how that works. This is like a mental test of magnitudes you may not understand, but you had said if the first time you did the Spartathlon, you did not finish.
Didn't finish.
And you knew as you're running along, you're like, I'm not gonna finish this.
Right.
And you're writing the story in your head that you're like, how am I gonna spin this to the people that, they expected me to finish and they didn't.
Yes.
But you went back and you ultimately did it again and you finished it. That's so highly unusual. One, that you went after it in the first place, but two, that you went back and did the race. I think that says a lot about not only your mental toughness, but why you have these innate skills. You've honed those skills to become the mentalist that you are, but you obviously have this ability to put yourself in these highly mentally stressful environments and perform not just well, but at your literal best.
Right.
And so like, dude, you go in front of an entire NFL football team. And these are also clips you got to check out if you haven't seen them. Like the Bengals, you go the
one of my favorites.
And like he'll tell the players, like the quarterback Joe Burrow, and he's like, I'm going to write down who you're going to throw it to, and I'm not going to show you. You're going to do it. Throw it to anybody in the room, and then after you do it, I'm going to show you what I thought. And like the clip, you see that he's written down a name, and sure enough, he turns, he throws the football, and everyone's like, oh, he guessed it right. But then the next time you do it, you write down 2 names, and it's like he's going to fake to this person and throw to this person, and you're holding it back. And sure enough, Joe, who clearly has no idea what you've written down, fake, throw, room goes wild.
Tanner.
Fakes to Jamar, throws to Tanner.
How do you put yourself in that position consistently and just stay calm enough to do those things when the outcome's binary? That's so stressful. How do you do it?
So I think your mindset, and this is where the ultra running and the mentalism go hand in hand, and I think each one has improved the other. Truly, there's physiological things involved, which being able to be calm under pressure, that calmness directly creates the success in the situation, which is when you start panicking, those chemicals that flood through your body can indicate to other people. The same way that animals can smell fear. They can literally smell fear. I think we still have that hardwired in us. We are still animals in a sense where we don't trust our instincts, but we can feel it. Like right now, if somebody walks in the room, even if you don't know that they're there, you have situational awareness where you can sense somebody walked in. How is that, right? It's not sonar. There's something in you that I don't know how we explain that's a sense that can indicate danger, which I'm sure you've had. You can sense on high alert and something floods you because that fight or flight. So in those situations where it's do or die, not literally, but if that screws up in that room, there is no safety net. This football team didn't walk in and get set up and say, hey guys, act excited for this random dude. No. Joe Burrow, the funny part about that clip was the day it dropped, the day before he signed the most lucrative contract in NFL history, $275 million with some obscene number that was guaranteed, like $184 million, fact check me. So the best comment, the comment that will run up the most was go, dude, he clearly paid this guy to do it. And then my comment under to this guy was, bro, I wish I had enough money to pay Joe Burrow off to pretend to do this. And it got up like 10,000 times because it's so comical. It's like, how do you think?
Right.
The behind the scenes on that, by the way, is great because Joe is very shy. He's a great guy, but I had no time with him. And when you go to these football teams, there's a series of people that are intermediaries. I'm not talking to the players.
No.
There's the PR team, the communications team. These are organizations. And they say to you, that person doesn't want to be involved. And so I say to them, you know, with all due respect, I'll see who wants to be involved. I say yes, but when I get in the room, my job is to convert no's into yeses, where some of the people that thought they wanted nothing to do with me, I'm gonna win them over. And the Joe Burrow thing, yes, there was an amazing trick, but getting somebody who, when they sat down in their mind, said 100% no, I'm not getting involved, and then having them not only say yes to what I was gonna do, buy in, but then have a monster reaction that's since been viewed hundreds of millions of times and helped change my life. That same thing, that set of skills on how to win people over, influence them, is applicable to everyone in every facet of your life. It works in business, if you're doing sales. It works in relationships, whether it's people you know closely and you want to create deeper bonds, or whether it's people you want to win over, whether it's like a romantic sense, friendship sense. It's how do you meet people and connect with them in a deeper way and get them not only to like you, build rapport, but both of those two things are to do what you want them to do. Not in a nefarious way, but think about it. I'm a parent. I'm trying to win my kids over. I'm selling them all the time my ideas, which is, please do your homework right now, even though you don't want to because there's better things to do. How do you convince them in an effective manner? And that is a form of mentalism, which is knowing how people think and using it to your advantage. That's what I'm doing all the time. And those are the skills you can apply. Going back to what you said with Joe Burrow and all these situations, I have used the running to calm myself and to not think of the finish line, which is when you're at 20 miles and you're miserable. It sounds like 6 miles is so little. It's just 6 miles, man. You've done a 10K before, but in the moment, every step hurts. I'm miserable. I'm puking. I feel terrible. I want to be done now. I want to be on a couch eating ice cream now. What the hell was I thinking doing this race? I am not a superhuman. Like literally, it's the same way that a friend of mine, David Goggins, will say, I don't want to be out there running in the rain, in the cold at 4:30 a.m. But the fact that I don't want to do it is why I'm doing it. Because that's where the real training hits. The moments where it becomes hard is where you learn who you really are. When I'm sitting here talking about running, it's easy. Oh yeah, it's fun. I want to get to the moments where I'm in the deepest, darkest place and I'm asking myself, questioning, why am I doing this? I don't want to do it and I still persevere. That's where you become stronger. It's where you tear the muscle and grow it back stronger. And those skills have allowed me, when I'm in those pressured moments and the ultras are like something I stand on, where I'm completely calm and I'm very aligned and I'm not going to panic. So the people around me see how calm I am and I can still keep them within my control.
What you're doing is so stress-packed, almost on purpose.
Right.
You're going in front of this crowd that's like big professional athletes, like all these celebrities, and you're gonna like walk in and impress them and do something that's just unbelievable.
Right.
Is there thrill out of the fact that you know going into that you're gonna be calm and people will see that not only will you perform, but for you, this is what you do. Do you seek these moments out because that is empowering for you?
Man, if we got like into a therapy session of like Freudian, I keep taking big swings at things that I don't know if they're necessarily going to work.
Yeah.
But I think that the audience can sense the danger, the risk.
Yes.
That's what's exciting. And so you can feel the excitement through the camera. It's what captures you. Because I don't know, I can't explain it. It's the audience can know internally that this might have gone wrong and it didn't. And that's why you get the big reactions.
So I've done a couple of live speaking engagements, just telling stories to crowds. And I remember I told my production team as we were getting ready to put it together, like, how do you want it to go? How much production value do you want? And I was like, I need the first time I do speaking engagements to be basically just me and a microphone. I want it to be a pure experience because I need to prove to myself that like, I can deliver something that's really engaging without any props, without anything, just me.
Right.
And it was like the sense of, I almost hated myself for doing this because you're setting yourself up, right? I'm going to walk out in front of thousands of people, me and a microphone. I've never done this before.
Right.
It could go horribly wrong. But it's like, I almost felt like the only way to do it was like full send commitment, like commitment to the bit.
You have to.
And I'd go out on stage, and with that sense of commitment, I was able to easily do these shows.
Yeah.
And I think for you, what I see in all these clips of you just like blowing people away, honestly, more than the bit, it is this sense that you are completely committed, and even if it goes wrong, it's like somehow he's going to spin this.
Right.
He's got full command of the room.
People love when it goes wrong. So there's that level of why are there always traffic jams where you're like, why was there such a traffic jam? The rubbernecking, right? The human instinct that's in our DNA of liking to gossip and liking to see what's going on with them. Oh, look at that car, holy crap, right? Everyone does it. We're all slowed down. We're on the freaking BQE, and what just happened? Why is, like I-78 is jammed up because one jerk was texting, and we have to watch that. So that same approach is, again, hardwired in our DNA. So in my show, I'm very keenly aware of moments where I can create stress, confusion, or light chaos, and I can make it so that you forget the things I want you to forget, and then I put the camera on the things I want you to remember. And during the moment where you're recounting what happened, I'm telling the story that you're going to remember in your mind. People don't realize that memory is malleable. So we think of his memory as the same thing as this camera shooting me right now, that we could rewind, play back, and it's immutable. It never changes. It's on camera, right? It's not. People remember certain things, and they are typically related to emotion. So I'll give you a great example. Eyewitness testimony, which you know more than anyone, is inherently unreliable, because when people's cortisol levels, adrenaline, they're in a moment where they just saw the shit go down, their body floods with these emotions and all of these things that they're not used to encountering. For most people, they're not into those situations that are high stress, and now suddenly a face, a color of hair, a height, all of that stuff that's captured in 1 or 2 seconds can be changed, especially if you're interrogated later and asked questions and the investigator uses leading language, right? So when you saw this guy who was like 6'2", 6'3", did I see? Well, I kind of maybe, right? You can start to change what they have, right? Imagine you do a watercolor painting and it's not dry yet. I can start to change what you painted. I'm narrating the story that you will tell the next person about me. And I will get rid of the parts I don't want, just like an editor clips sections out. And I have it so your memory only remembers the things I want you to tell, or the story you tell, because the story you tell about me is what continues. It's what makes me memorable. And anyone that ever walks into a room and is the most memorable person in the room will achieve their goals the most effectively. Just think about it in your head. When you've gone to a party or an event and you've met someone, there's always an event when you go home and you're talking to your wife or you're talking, like, man, did you meet that guy? Yeah, was he? There's always a person who stands out. Sure. If it's a good party. Otherwise, it sucks. You're like, everyone's boring. But what made that person interesting? Now, I think in a lot of instances, it's the fact that the person who's very interesting isn't a big talker, but they're very interested and they bring out the best in you, and you feel like, man, they were so interested in me, and they give good stories and they ask me questions I've never been asked before, and that kind of elevates a certain level in you where you get excited to be around them. Some people have a natural charisma, and you analyze, what is a natural charisma? What is it that they do when they walk in the room? They approach with confidence. They typically approach not a direct thing. So another thing that is very important, body posture, body positioning, and how you walk up to somebody you don't know instantly puts you at ease or makes you feel ill at ease and like they're intruding your space. If somebody walks up to you too close, whoa, bro, what are you doing? Chill out. If somebody approaches you quickly and they're talking and they're not slowing down and you don't know when they're gonna leave, then you start getting this feeling of, oh God, am I stuck in this conversation for a while? Versus, and I learned this doing restaurants when I was a kid, if I walk up to you at an angle and it looks like I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and you're seeing one of my eyes, which is, again, the way animals react, instead of head on, which scares them, but at a sideways. And if I give you a time constraint, which is, oh, great to meet you. And for me, performing magic, people might not want me there. They don't know who I am, especially at a restaurant where you're having dinner and you're like, who is this kid? And I was 14, and do I have to tip him? Oh my God, do I have any cash on me? All of these things go through your mind. So I have to take away those layers of resistance. And I learned early on what I could do in those moments that applies to everything in life. It's not just about the performance, it's life skills. And I think those life skills translate very effectively into habits for success, no matter what you do.
It seems like you are, to simplify, extremely perceptive about other people. Like you're picking up cues that maybe to you seem like they could be picked up by a lot of people, but
right.
Your ability, at least the way you're describing it, to read people really, really quickly is astounding. And I'll say, on a much smaller level, I actually did, when I was in the SEAL teams, I did a lot of the speaking with locals. Basically, we'd be on target, and then at the end of whatever conflict we were in, there'd be an opportunity to speak to people that were in whatever village we were in Afghanistan. And truthfully, you're basically talking to the men,
Right.
and you're trying to discern if they were just shooting at you
Right.
or they weren't. And it's really hard to tell.
Right.
And a lot of times, even with the interpreter, a conversation's not going to get you there.
No.
You're really just trying to gauge how they view me.
Intuition and instinct go a long way, right? If you have a gut feeling, you have to trust it. Then try to verify it. But if you get that gut feeling and you ignore it, like, you know, that like tickling of like, this doesn't feel right, I'm sure in your situation, that's life or death.
Yeah, I mean, this was like relatively safe, you know,
Yeah.
so we're safe at this point. But a lot of times I would pick up very quickly if someone was just positioning themselves in a sort of adversarial way. Like, I'm sure, I'm speaking to the guy who knows this stuff,
Yeah.
but there's a way you stand if you're almost sort of seeking a level of conflict with the person you're with.
Right.
If you're deferential, you're sort of positioning yourself in such a way. But like, I'm coming into the room, I'm decked out in like special operations gear, we've just secured the target, and I'm talking to you. And if you're gonna stand toe to toe with me,
Right.
and like look me square in the eyes, pretty much immediately I'm like, well, this is a combatant.
Right.
You know, whereas other people, maybe they're scared or whatever, but it usually comes off very quickly. And then the conversation, to be honest, it wound up being like irrelevant. It's the first like 3 seconds that I'm with somebody. And so for you, I mean, I have no idea if that relates, but are you like reading people and that's basically your tell? Or are you constantly evaluating people, whether it's during a performance or not, like in your life?
Yes.
Are you constantly evaluating? Like, how does that work for you?
So thankfully, the stakes are much lower for me. So I don't ever want to put myself on the category of a Navy SEAL defending our country. It's like what I'm doing is entertaining people.
Sure.
And the skills don't generalize. So the next part is people just say, well, if you're this good, why aren't you just winning millions of dollars playing poker?
Oh,
why aren't you
interesting.
like catching, you know, killers? So it's because, again, this is under the guise of entertainment and the skills don't generalize. Very clear cut. Guessing, I'll give a great example. I'm gonna do this in a moment. But if I were to ask at the table when we're playing poker,
Yep.
just look at why, you know, the cards are right, because I have a series of things that I do, procedures, to narrow the options down and figure out what you thought of that involve me being in charge.
Interesting.
Watch this. Let's just play a fun game. Okay? Picture now a card trick. Right now, if I had a deck of cards, and I don't even have one, I could probably get one out of a bag, and you don't have a deck of cards.
A deck of cards.
Right? You've never seen a deck of cards today, have you?
No.
No. So when I was a magician, we'd have to have a deck of cards right now. And I would do the old pick one card, and you'd put it back and I'd find it. But I don't have a deck of cards. So let's just pantomime this, because mentalism is about thoughts. I give you an invisible deck.
Okay, got it.
You mix them up. John, shuffle them up. Let's see the skills. Okay? And now
All right.
you take those cards, and I want you to do this. I want you to spread them out in front of you. And spreading them out in front of you means you can see all 52.
Yep.
And you can make a conscious decision, which some people would say later, well, he somehow influenced you. He used certain words, maybe used certain hand gestures. Something was already planted in your mind so that you would do my bidding.
Okay.
So I want to make this even more impossible. Take the cards and close them up again. Give one more shuffle just to be safe. I love it. And now you're going to spread them face down, which means you can't see them.
All right.
Which means that right now, if I told you to reach down and pick any card, there's no way that you could be influenced because you don't even know which one it is now. I want you to slowly reach down and maybe go to grab one and go, nah, doesn't feel right. And you maybe jump to another one next to it or this one and just grab one card at random. Now, before you turn over, you grab it out.
Okay.
And are we in agreement? It's absolutely impossible that I could know what you just picked because it's not real. It's an invisible card that you haven't even turned over yet. You don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So you drop the rest of the cards away, gone, and now something happens that's interesting. You turn the card over, you look at it.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Hold it up, and I want you to picture that card right there. Can you see it?
Yep.
Now watch. I didn't influence this in any way, did I? This is your own choice. 100%.
100%.
And I say to you, hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades, there's all the four suits, there's the high cards, the low cards, all of these different cards. And you had said earlier, blackjack, poker, look at that card. Imagine what it looks like. Imagine the jack, queen, and king have more ink because they're very full. They've painted them. Versus, for example, a two only has the two hearts and they go all the way through. And you know what you did? You decided, because poker on the back of the box, ace of spades is the card in your hand, isn't it?
Yeah. What the hell, dude? That's crazy. Yeah, it's the ace of spades.
Ace of spades.
Yeah. It's the
An invisible deck of cards didn't exist. So that, I know
Dude,
it seems.
That's crazy.
Thank you.
I changed my mind like 4 times.
I could tell you did. I saw that, the shifting and the changing. You're like, I'm gonna go with a different. You're thinking of a different spade, but you said, no, I'm gonna go back. That has to do with,
Dude,
again,
that's crazy. That's crazy. I was actively trying to subvert you. That's
so
crazy.
I can't do that at a poker table because I can't just tell the guy in front of me, look at your 2 cards before we get the river, look at me, do this, do that. They're gonna be like, screw you, dude, I'm not doing any of this. Get out of my face. Put on the sunglasses, rock and roll. So in my performance, I'm the director. I get to call the shots.
Wow.
So it doesn't unfortunately work with everything. If it did, it'd be amazing. But to answer your question, I'm not living my life in like brrr mode of like, whoop, that guy. I always think of it as in the Bourne Identity.
Oh yeah.
When
yeah,
he
yeah.
loses memory and he's in that diner and he doesn't know who he is yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he tells the guy next to him, why do I know that guy's 255 and can fight? Why do I know this? Why do I know that right now? I know the 4 license plates of the cars when I walked in. Why do I know all this stuff? And he's starting to dawn on him. He's like a secret spy agent.
Yeah.
Badass. So I think it's likened to that where when I turn it on, I'm hyper focused on what I do and my mission at hand. And the analyzing people very quickly is very, very similar to what you did, except it's done for under the context of entertainment, which is when I'm in a crowd, I'm looking around to see who I think will be great for my next trick when I'm performing. This person right now. And if you ask me, why was he so good? People will come up to me at the end of the show and go, why didn't you pick me? And I go, no offense to you. I just, for whatever reason, and it's the intangible, it's the 30 years of training, you just weren't as good as them right now. I thought they would deliver the best reaction and they would mesh with what I wanted. Now in certain rooms, I can't pick the person. You're on TV with 3 hosts, you gotta use those 3 hosts. You make the best of a situation, but when I have people to choose from, and if you see me at like a live show,
Yeah.
that's very exciting. And the fact that you like throw frisbees, we pick people randomly. If we're in like an arena, we shoot t-shirts to like the 8th row, who's got it, stand up please. And how could I know who'd catch the t-shirt? How could I know who'd catch a frisbee? How could you know any of this stuff? Then I work with those people, and that's what really makes it real because, yo, that's anyone. This is some drunk jerk who's like 8 rows in, who's, barely conscious. How in the world did you guess the name of his first crush?
I'm still sort of in shock that you just did. So I'm like thinking through how are you doing this? I realize that there's more to it than like here's how you, I was pretty good at, the reason I was the guy that did a lot of the questioning of the people on site is because I had decent perception. I was pretty good at figuring out who likely had more information, and it would like lead to weapons caches or whatever. So it was just like basically I was successful enough that I kept doing it. So I was pretty perceptive. But like
I think you still are.
Well, thank you. But
yeah.
it's like to be able to break down beyond a gut feeling to like specifics. It's just what we've talked about, this thing that you do when you're making it out. You're very humble about it. Like, yeah, you can learn how to do it, whatever it is. But like, no, you can't.
I had to. Like again, I wasn't Spider-Man, bitten by a spider and radioactive, and like I changed. It's been trial and error. It's been iteration, and the same thing that has allowed me to go run 153 miles. That, like, how you have children? We were talking about right when I walked in. We had a couple minutes. I came here from the airport talking about our kids, and you want to instill a work ethic in your kids. It's very interesting because being a parent, I think, is my most important job, and I'm assuming that's my immortality. It's like, who are they going to be? Because as soon as you have kids, you start to feel like I'm going to die one day, and this is my future and their future, and it's like it really no greater joy in life. But how do I instill a work ethic in them? Because my kids aren't going to grow up the same as me, and I'm feeling, I don't know what your beginnings were. Mine were very humble, where
Same.
I had to work really hard, and I was like age 16. I was supporting myself, which I don't wish upon my kids. They'll never know what that means. But I lived on my own, and I had to pay for college, and I had to find an apartment, and like nobody paid for this stuff, so I had to figure life out early.
Yeah.
Which at the time I felt kind of pissed. So I'm like, all these other kids are going on vacation, they have a car, their parents. I don't have any of that.
Yeah.
But now, in hindsight, that set me up for success in a huge way, and it made it so I didn't have a safety net. So I had to become the safety net, and I think that there's a level of that toughness you have to either create in yourself, if it's not, and a lot of people are going to have it, because a lot of people listening to this are, hustling, and they might not have any of these things.
Yeah.
So I think that deciding on a goal and not giving up is so much more important than almost natural talent, skill, anything. Is persistence and you saying like, oh, I can't do this, there shouldn't be that word in your vocabulary.
You said something going back to your Spartathlon experience that actually really struck a chord with me. I'm going to give you a quick story that I think relates, and I think that it plays into what you just said. So when you did not finish your Spartathlon race, you came back and you obviously did it, and you successfully completed this.
It ate me alive. Are you kidding me? It killed me.
But you said something to the effect of, when I went into that second attempt, I was prepared to basically die in order to complete this race. So for me, I've had exactly that experience one time, and it changed my life afterwards. When I was in SEAL training, everyone thinks the hard part is at the beginning of training. The famous sort of like hell week, and you're running around on the beach and you're beat down and you're tired. That's bad, not the hardest part. The hardest part comes about halfway through training. It's a 6-month-long course. Halfway through, you're in the underwater phase. And by this point, statistically, virtually everybody in your class is going to graduate, despite the difficulty of this test. It's the moment you all are literally forced to have this moment. And it's horrifying. There's this test called pool competency. They tell you it's just this, you just go in with your scuba tanks, and you know, the instructors are going to come down there. You're in the 9-foot section of the pool, and you're like crawling around, and they're going to come down and just kind of screw with you. And you're going to follow procedures that you're taught to basically, after they finish tumbling you around and turning your air off, you go back on your knees, and they're watching you the whole time, and you follow these steps. You reach back, you turn on your air, you check your J valve, you check your straps, make sure it's a 3-finger loop here, you check your weight belt. I can still do it now, but it's a procedure that no matter what happens to you underwater, you reset, you follow the procedure. But each problem that they give you, whether it's tying a knot in your hose or whatever it is, gets progressively harder to fix. All fixable problems for 20 minutes. And so each time someone's come down on you, first of all, as they're attacking you, you have to go into the fetal position and just wait. You're not getting air. They're tumbling you around, so you're going about 60 seconds to 90 seconds with no air. And then you need to follow the procedure. So you can see you become more and more hypercapnic. You're not breathing. And it's this test of staying calm and following the procedures despite literally being on the precipice of passing out. People call it simulated drowning, this test, and you get 4 attempts at it. And so and one of the things you got to do is you got to stay calm. And so I went in and I'm doing the test, failed it miserably 4 times in a row. Wasn't even close. Was not even close. Like, I actually was the guy that they had to put a pink piece of tape around my ankle, and it wasn't even to humiliate me. I would get so panicked, I would push off the bottom of the pool and go to the surface, but we're breathing mixed gas. And if you do that, you can risk rupturing your lungs with air bubbles. And so you have to be you have to go up at a certain speed. And so there's like standby divers there to keep me from panicking and rocketing to the surface. And so I failed 4 times in a row. And as a result, I actually got rolled out of the class I was in. The class I was with, all my buddies, and they're like, look, we're going to give you one more shot. You're going to leave this class, go to the next class, and you can try again with that class. And so I go to the next class.
That sets you back 6 months?
It actually was just a couple months. They let me start in second phase. But so I go into the next class. And the thing is the students in this class, they've been through the hell week and everything, and they know I'm a rollback. And I sort of took on the role of like, I'm going to be a mentor. Like, yeah, I obviously failed pool comp, and we're all going to take it here soon. But I really tried hard to be like a mentor. Like, here's what I experienced. I obviously failed it, but let me give you all the insights I can possibly give you. And everyone's looking at me like, oh, John's got it. Like, he failed, but he's going to be fine. And so we get to test day, and I failed the first 2 attempts. Not out of panic, out of procedural problems. And so I fail on Friday. There's 2 more attempts left, and it's on that Monday. And if I don't pass them, not only will it humiliate me, but I'm dropped from SEAL training. That weekend was horrible because I'm thinking about this test. On Monday morning, I got to the pool deck, and I was so nervous all weekend. And I'm sitting on the pool deck. They make you sit with your back to the pool, and they made me go last that day. And I'm hearing the instructors like ripping kids' hoses. You're like air bubbling up off the pool. Kids are like passing out like red line. And medics running over. It's chaos, and you're just sitting there waiting for your turn. And then when it was my turn, I just had this mental shift occur where I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna fucking die in that pool before I fail this test. And I got in the water, and it was like calm comes over me. And I begin this test, and it didn't matter how long I went without air. It didn't matter what the problem was. I had fully committed to this concept of I will literally die before I fail this test. And I passed, and it was so easy. And it showed me that like there's a point where you can convince yourself that your mind can sort of override all the discomfort, and you can basically do whatever you want. And you described when you went and did the Spartathlon the second time, that feeling of, I will die before I don't finish this race.
100%.
And sure enough, you did it. And so do you think that's something everybody can achieve, that level of I will go full send no matter what? Because I think for you, clearly, you put yourself in pressure situations and you just go for it. Like, I feel like maybe that's something that we have that others don't, or do you think that anyone can tap into that?
That's such a tough question because it's so hard to speak for other people and where mental toughness comes from. And I think you build it up over time. I don't think you're born with it at all. And it's those failures that reinforce later. Had you gotten it on the first try, where would you be today? Isn't that a funny question to ask yourself? Would you still be this person? So when I came back the second time, I had this guy who I saw at mile, like, I don't remember what mile it was. I DNF'd at 78. But it was this bald dude. I think he was like from Eastern Europe, and he's wearing this thing, and we're in the middle of the night, and I'm a wreck. I'm a wreck, bro. Like, just been puking maybe 100 times, and now I'm writing my DNF speech, which in the parlance of ultra marathoning is did not finish. They don't write a time next to your name, they write DNF, which is so embarrassing and just kills you. And so I've already written my speech, what I'm gonna tell my wife when I went to Greece and spent all this money, and my friends who were like, dude, how'd you do on that race? And you gotta eat it and tell everyone, well, you gotta have that story of like, I'm gonna learn from this experience and I'm gonna come back stronger, like all that bullshit that no, you should have finished. And so I see this guy and I'm already talking all this stuff like, oh man, I don't have it today. We're at an aid station together, middle of the night, we haven't slept all night. And this guy looks at me, doesn't really understand English, and his eyes, he's these crazy eyes, they're open. I'll never forget it. He looked at me and he goes, if you cannot run, you walk. If you cannot walk, you crawl. But you never stop. Like a psycho, like a zombie apocalypse. And in the moment, I couldn't digest it, right? I couldn't take that and bottle it up and shoot it in my vein. But slowly after I left, it haunted me.
Yeah.
Because this guy, like what he had in his eyes is what I need to have the next year. And so that like slowly worked into my DNA. And when I got there, I was you on that attempt. When I started, there was no doubt. There's no doubt.
Yep.
I am finishing this thing no matter what. And when the voice enters my head that says you aren't finishing, hey, what are you talking about? You don't exist. Gone. We go right back to the mindset. I'm hardened steel, titanium, where I'm finishing no matter what. If that means I'm walking the next 24 hours, puking with a splint on my leg, I'm finishing this race because now this is life or death.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's funny. I rarely meet people that have had a comparable experience to what I described with pool comp, but it's so clear, like for you, this is like a defining moment. And so if people understand that in their own lives, that if your thing is, oh man, I really want to start a business. Oh man, I really want to run a Spartathlon or be a SEAL or whatever it is, whatever someone's goal is, however big or small, if the stakes were as big as they could possibly be, you could do it.
Right.
Or you could die trying. That's the level of commitment that some people need to understand goes into success. It's a compounding effect.
Right.
As soon as I became a SEAL, it showed me that I now have the capacity to set big goals and achieve them, not be someone who claims to want to do things, but then write the DNF story of why I never actually did it.
Right. And that knowledge, that exact way you said, the knowledge that you did it now changes the way your mind is wired. Because now you go, oh my God, what else could I do? And now if I set my mind to it, you start to believe in yourself in a certain way. And that becomes self-fulfilling. So I think for whatever people do, again, if it's inspirational messaging, like my book is designed to be motivational, but it's designed to be action oriented. Like I want to teach people.
Actually, I'll hold it up while you're talking.
How to take action. So like literally the words I used, and I thought about this a lot, was proven habits for success. Because a lot of people think you're going to get this book is that I'm going to teach you magic tricks or mentalism tricks. And the real talk is you can find those elsewhere. So the book is not going to teach you tricks. I need everyone to know because they're going to buy it and be like, dude, where do you teach me what Joe Burrow, how the hell does he throw the ball? I go, I'm not going to teach you how I do the tricks, but knowing what somebody who might have control of your life, knowing when to approach your boss, what to say, and how to get the raise that you've been working for the last 2 years, what if you could do that and up your chances by 10, 20, 30, 40% of doing that and getting them to do what you want? That, to me, is worth a couple bucks. That's worth your time, which is even more valuable than the amount of money for the book to read it. And we got a lot of fun stories baked in there as well from my crazy life.
This book really captures the essence of someone who has put themselves in highly stressful situations and persevered, and they've lived a life of basically pretending that everything is a must succeed.
Yeah.
And how to basically, harness your mind, and in some ways, learn how to read other people and influence other people. But this is a very powerful, I'm going to call it a self-help book, because to me, this is like practically a Bible of how to motivate and how to be the best version of yourself. So this is an amazing book. You got to check it out. Read your mind.
Your fellow Navy SEAL, David Goggins, gave me the quote on the top, which says, "Learn to master the most powerful weapon, your mind," which encapsulates what the entire book is all about, which is your mind controls your success. Whatever success is defined for you, which for everyone is different. Maybe it's monetary, maybe it's romantic, maybe it's want to have kids, maybe it's like, I just want to do something I'm not doing now. And how do you get from step A to B to C? And I know that sounds so silly, but in almost every instance, other people are involved in that journey. And my whole training has been how to win over people, how to know what they're thinking, how to influence them, right? How to get rid of the fear of rejection and failure, which is a huge part of my book, which is mostly what holds people back. That is such a huge factor. And I learned that at a young age, doing like restaurant magic and all those little things I learned how to iterate and improve. I want to give you decades of the mistakes I made, but I want to distill out of them what you can do to fast track your success.
That's amazing. This is awesome.
Let me ask you a question, John. If I told you right now, okay, the book is in your hand, and I were to ask you to flip to any page you wanted, impulsive, spontaneous, in my book, any page you wanted, and look at it and then pick any word, and then I try to guess the word. On the surface, that seems crazy, right? That seems amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this like somebody at home, and I want to go to the skeptic, not the normal person, but the outlier, the 1 out of 100 who goes, yo, but he wrote the book. I wrote the book. So what if I have a photographic memory? What if I know it's on every single page? And if I could see what page you're on, I could say, right, that could have happened. That's a plausible but very improbable solution. So what if instead of doing that, because this is my book,
right?
Can we just see this room? This is, for, by the way, shout out to your team, sick. The setup here is incredible.
It is pretty good.
For this interview, amazing. I've been in a lot of interviews and this might take the cake.
All right.
Hundreds and hundreds of books, probably thousands.
Yeah.
So if I were to instead ask you to walk up to any one of these books, now not physically, but mentally, if I would have said, walk up to any book in this room, grab it, walk up, and I want you to flip it open to any page, to look at that page, and to go back and forth, and my eyes are closed, to visit and stop at any word. Can you see this happening? Close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, envision that occurring. Did you just play it out?
Yep.
Okay. Open your eyes. Be honest, right? These people trust you. They've seen you for years. This isn't staged. This isn't set up. There is no conceivable way I could know what you would have done. You didn't even know what you were going to do before I asked you to.
Yeah, fair.
When people flip, some people will find a specific page that has a meaning to them. Like maybe a kid's birthday, maybe it's January 24th, so you go to 124 to be fun about it. Or some people just flip to a random page. Now watch, I watched to see the reaction. I don't think you got nostalgic. Personal reference, the page you picked, it doesn't have a meaning to you, does it?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't see it that way. I also see it as when you just flip, you go, stop. You were quick. You felt rushed, so you rushed. I could see it. You feel a little tense. So some people would, and they would have gone longer in the book. Again, you don't have to tell me this. Do we have a marker? Do we have something we could write with?
I have a pen.
A pen? Okay, I'm gonna close, is that your pen?
It is my pen.
Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes, and I want you to do this close to your body and on the palm of your hand, and make sure there's no way I can see this and there's no camera behind you. Does it write? Does the pen write?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes. On the palm of your hand with no camera, nothing behind you, write as big as you can what page number you went to in the book. When you're done, blow on it, put it close to your chest. Nobody could have seen that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can I open my eyes?
Yep.
My gut says, again, I'm fishing. Did I get a bite? Yes. I reel it in. I think you went with an earlier page. My gut says, because I've seen what you would do, I think it was 2 digits. Now I ask myself, look at the smile, the laugh, I might as well said yes. So I keep going. It's so unlikely that you would have done the first 30 or 40 pages, because you can't even flip the page. You open a book and you go, it's already off your thumb before I've even got to page 50. So now what feels like a number that's got like some text, but not, and I think that you would have done right the backward hat, couple buttons open, showing some chest hair. He's more of an odd type of guy than an even. You're not a by the book. I think you might have thought of the number, chuckled, and been like inappropriate. So you wouldn't have done 69, even though it's so funny. You did 67, didn't you? can we see your hand is the number 67.
Yeah. Dude, that's insane. What, dude? How?
Any book, any page, but any word is near infinite. I don't want you to write anything. People are going to say he's got a trick hand, he's got a trick pen. This is your stuff.
Yeah,
Don't
this
write
is
down
legitimate.
a thing. Whatever word you saw in your mind in a book, not a real book, you imagine. Throw the pen away. I want you to count without using your fingers,
Okay.
to count the number of letters to yourself, not out loud, in the word you selected, just to yourself. Count it to yourself. Don't say it out loud at the end. Some people, right when they get it, they say it. All right. No? Maybe?
I have to double check. Hold on.
Oh, don't even say that. Now you gave so much away. The double check is always an indicator of a longer word. No one double checks a word. Open your eyes.
Okay.
No one double checks a word that's 5 letters or less. No one. So now we know it's longer. Also, you probably would have done a longer word. Nobody does and, the, he, she, if.
No.
Under this level of pressure, no way. We're balling, baby. I think he did a longer word. I think this place, it's got this ambiance of like gravity. And you know, some of these books are probably hundreds of years old. Okay, think of the word. You counted twice. Most people, when they count the second time, they realize they got it wrong, and they realize, oh crap, I counted wrong the first time, and you did that. But they usually count longer and then shorter, and that's what you did. And my gut says you were like, no, it's not. You thought it was 9, but it's actually 8 letters, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what happened in your mind. That's not even. And imagine that you write down the word. You're not going to write a thing. I want this to be all in your mind. You write down 8 letters, like hangman.
Yep.
You reach over, and you just go back and forth, and you don't know why, but you stop on one letter and you circle that one letter. You circle one letter somewhere in the word.
Got
Did
it.
you do it? In the word is how I cue you. When I say that, almost nobody does the first letter. First letter will give away the rest of the word for a lot of people. And then also in makes it feel like it should be in between. You didn't do the first letter, did you? No, see, I was trying to guide you. And then a lot of people will avoid the vowels because we know there's vowels. You didn't do a vowel, did you? So again, we're going down that path. And now you jump back and forth. You're like, do I do this one? And my gut said you were about to do a letter, but and you jumped over. The letter you're thinking of, no, I don't. It's not in the word more than once, is it? It is, right? It is, because you jump between the two of them.
But yeah.
And what's weird is the first letter you were about to circle, but you didn't. You were going to do a T, and you didn't. You're thinking of an S, aren't you?
Yes.
Swear to them. There's no setup here. This is not staged.
If you wrote this is going to be
literally, we have
mind-blowing.
a book, a room with hundreds of books, thousands of books. You imagine in your mind picking one up, opening it up, and going to any word. Close your eyes. Can you cover them with your hand, please? I want to show them at home because people will say later that I changed what I wrote somehow.
All right.
His eyes are covered. Can we see this from any camera or no? Have we seen one? Open your eyes. What are you picturing in your mind? You flipped an invisible book to page 67. You saw hundreds of words. You stopped. One of them jumped out at you. What was that word?
Chastise.
Chastise.
Hell, dude. It's such a random word. That's crazy. This is not staged. This is crazy. That's crazy. I picked that because that's the most bizarre word I could think of. That's crazy, man. I don't even know what to say. I'm like looking at other people. Like I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. That is, I gotta be honest. I don't even know what to say. I'm shocked. I knew you probably would be able to do this, but this is not set up. But he walked in, and within 2 minutes we were filming. This is, I'm blown away.
Create memorable moments that people take and the stories they tell. And you could chastise me, but you got a story that's going to live in your brain for a while. That's my goal. Is I just put a splinter in your brain.
Oh my
You're going to try to
God.
pick out for years and be like, how did he know? And I wasn't going to do page 67. I did that at the last minute. I changed.
That is so wild. What was like your first time doing this? Like your first big moment of big trick with a big audience, and you nailed it.
So I think certain things in life can't be bought, but have to be earned. The
Sure.
same way when you're in SEALs training, there's no check you can write to get that, right? So certain things in life You really have to earn. And so when I did that show, America's Got Talent,
Yeah.
I never expected to go as far as I did. I was truly, this isn't like, oh, this false humility. Every round I was in, I gave it my all, and I didn't think what I'm going to do next. It's just like when I hear wide receivers who at tight ends, when they say, what do you focus on when the ball gets thrown your way? Catching it. You do not think of what you're going to do after you catch the ball or you drop the ball. And so my mindset every single time was this: I'm going to just do everything I can in this round, kill it, and that's it. I never saw and then. There was no and then, which I think is a powerful thing to do, because as soon as you start thinking and then, you start getting hung up and you drop the ball. So where do I go with this? Every round, at the end of it, it was the highs and lows were insane. Because the highs were like, I just made it through. The lows were like, oh crap, I didn't plan what I'm going to do next round, which might be in a week or two. It's got to be better than this. So it was like these two mixed emotions. So when I got to the finale, this was like the heyday of the show in linear TV, which now people are like, TV, where do I watch TV? Online? This is when like 15 million people would tune in live. Radio City Music Hall, live. That means I am on a stage, Radio City Music, there's 6,000 people in the audience, and this is airing to everyone live, which means if you screw up, ain't no safety net. You don't get caught. You don't go, cut, it's not going right. So if chastise isn't the word, if you didn't think of the letter S, if none of those things happened, I can't get out of it.
Oh
So
my
my finale,
That's intense.
that was one of those moments that was life-changing.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. So you've accomplished so much, and you clearly are somebody that is taking big swings, like you said. Do you have any sort of like bucket list life items that still are like, I really want to accomplish that at some point?
It's funny you think that, because I think I'm just starting. So like in my mind, I'm so forward facing, and it's something I tell myself on a regular basis to like live in the moment, because it's always like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's a problem in life, because when you do earn certain things or have like pinch me moments, I have pinch me moments where I'm like in the room with Steven Spielberg or LeBron, and like you just have this moment of like, dude, just think back to you 20 years ago. If you could go in a time machine, meet yourself, like Marty McFly, and be like, you're not going to believe what you're going to do in 10 years or 20 years. But there's a lot of things. Having my own series, I'm so excited about that. That's been years and years and years in the making, of having not just all these clips that you see, but a show that you get to see who I am, not just what I do.
Right.
So you get a feeling for like, what am I? Who am I? What makes me tick? And hopefully the book too, which is for years something I didn't feel confident to write a book, because I'm like, what story do I have to tell, man? Like, I do these cool tricks, that's awesome, but I started to really see that I think some of the things that I do in my life that are surrounding the mentalism are the actual hidden tricks and tips for success. This whole thing, mentalism, is very fresh and new. It's been around for 100+ years. But I think people are just getting this awareness of it. And it's because of the sports team, it's because of these things, but they're starting to see like, this isn't magic. This is really cool and different, and it captivates people's imaginations. And I'm trying to elevate the field, not just for myself, but like the other people that do it. It's kind of like the rising tide lifts all ships. It's good for my industry, it's good for us, and it makes what I do like cool and innovative. And I like the fact that I'm being tied to it, where I want to be the name brand for this art. When you ask somebody in 5 years, who's your favorite mentalist? If you ask them that today, the question is, what's a mentalist? In 5 years, if I've done my job right, the instant answer to that question, you mean like O's the mentalist? Like the Google, the Kleenex, you create the moniker and the brand, because you've aligned yourself so closely with what this is that people associate you with it.
Dude, on that note, where's your book? That's amazing. We got to make sure that if you want more insights from the world's greatest mentalist, check out Read Your Mind. It's his new book by Otis Perlman. This is incredible. It has all those tips, tricks, secrets, mental hacks, you name it. You got to go check it out. Thank you so much for being on here. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Take care,
man. Thank you.
Seriously, mind blown. This is, I don't even know what this is. Chastise 67, crazy. Thank you, Oz.
You got it.
Today, we're going to cover a story that sounds like a nightmare. It's about this man who's home alone when suddenly his power goes out. And as he goes to get it back on again, he realizes he's not alone. But before we get into that story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload once a week. So if that's of interest to you, please show up at the Like Button's house with one of those big oversized checks and tell them they've won a multi-million-dollar sweepstakes. And then right as they and their family begin to celebrate, say, just kidding, April Fools, and then leave. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Okay, let's get into today's story. On February 27th, 2025, a man in his 30s named John grabbed a drink out of his fridge in his kitchen and then walked into his living room. He had just finished work, and his wife and kids were out visiting his in-laws, and so tonight he was excited to just sit on the couch and watch TV. As he sat down, he called out to his dog. There was a huge thunderstorm outside, and he knew his dog was deathly afraid of thunder, and so he expected her to come running as soon as she heard her name. But after he called her, he heard nothing. But this didn't worry him, because he figured, his dog must have found a good hiding spot and had just fallen asleep there. So John turned his attention to the TV and began looking for a horror movie to watch. But as he did, he started thinking about his wife and his kids driving home that night, and he was worried about them, because of the weather. So instead of clicking on the horror movie, he turned to the local news to check on the weather. However, as soon as the local news came on, it was not the weather they were talking about, despite this being a major storm. This should have kind of dominated the news, but it wasn't. Instead, there was a much bigger story on the news right now, and that was there was this huge riot happening at a state prison that was only 10 miles away from where John lived. And apparently, the most dangerous convict at this prison had escaped. The newscasters began to describe this convict, and they said he actually had a nickname the other prisoners had given him. They called him the Monster of Cell Block C. Now, this nickname had to do in part with the fact that he was just a horrible criminal, like people were scared of him. And then also, the nickname came from his just totally bizarre and threatening behavior. He would routinely sit in the corner of his cell and eat insects off the ground. And then also, he kept jumping on prison guards every chance he got, which got him thrown in solitary confinement, where he just continued to eat the insects there and act totally unhinged. But perhaps the biggest reason he was dubbed the Monster of Cell Block C is because of his appearance. He had these crazy bulging eyes and this really thick neck. It made him look totally deformed. The anchors were telling locals to stay vigilant because the police had no idea where the Monster of Cell Block C was. Maybe he was still at the prison, but it did seem entirely possible that he really had escaped. And then it seemed like the anchors were about to put a picture up of the actual inmate himself, when suddenly John heard this huge boom of thunder outside, and then the power in his house just completely cut out, so the TV shut off. He didn't get to see what the inmate looked like. John instinctively reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone to use the flashlight feature, but his phone was dead. It had died like a couple minutes earlier, and he had told himself, I gotta plug this phone in, but he just hadn't done it yet. And now the power's out. So he has no light source. And on top of that, John couldn't help but feel sort of rattled. He had just heard on the news that, the Monster of Cell Block C has escaped 10 miles away, and now the power's out at his house in the middle of a storm, and he's all alone. But at the same time, John told himself, everything's fine. It's just a coincidence here that the power's gone out right at this moment. I'm fine. The state prison, it's 10 miles away, and why would this convict have any interest coming to my house? So I'm fine. And so John stood up and began heading towards his kitchen, where he knew he kept a flashlight. But as he got close to the kitchen, he heard a strange sound. It was an electronic ding, like a phone notification sound. But at the same time, John really couldn't quite place it. And he also knew it couldn't be his phone because his phone was dead. However, he thought maybe it's my kids' iPads. After all, the sound he was hearing, the more he listened, he could tell it was coming from upstairs, and that's where his kids' iPads were. However, the sound still seemed really weird to John because it started suddenly, basically right after the power went out. He hadn't heard it before that. And also, if these were, notification sounds on his kids' iPads, you would think there would only be maybe 1 or 2 notifications. You wouldn't have, a string of notification sounds. But as John listened, he heard like this incessant amount of dinging coming from the upstairs. And it wasn't constant, it was sort of sporadic, like random dings kind of all over the place. But then John remembered that his kids' iPads had a messaging app on it so they could talk to their parents. And John remembered that, his phone is dead. His wife could be out there driving in the storm. And so maybe she was trying to get in touch with him, couldn't because his phone was dead. And so now she was trying to message him using their kids' iPads. And so suddenly his heart rate began to pick up. He ran into the kitchen, he grabbed the flashlight, turned it on, and he ran to the base of the stairs that led up to the second floor. And as he began ascending the stairs, he's hearing that dinging sound over and over and over again. He knows it's from somewhere upstairs, and he can't help but feel totally anxious about it, like he can't place it. It kind of sounds like an iPad, but at the same time, it doesn't. He doesn't really know what it is. And so up the stairs he goes, he's scanning all around. There's no movement in the house. He still hasn't seen his dog. He gets to the top of the stairs, and in their house, there was this hallway that ran right and left from the top of the stairs. John looked to the right and shined his flashlight down there, and it was just all darkness and totally silent. The dinging was coming from the left side of the hallway. John swung the flashlight around and he shined it, and as soon as he looked down the hallway to the left side, his heart really began to race. Because remember, the power is off inside of his house, so all the lights and everything should be off. But as he was looking down the hallway, he saw there was bright light coming out from underneath his closed bedroom door. And also, that dinging sound was coming from in his bedroom. And his kids' iPads were not in there. At this point, John was terrified, but he knew he had to go in there. He had to see what was going on inside of his house. And so, very nervously, he began walking down the hallway towards the closed door. And as he's walking, the dinging sound is getting louder and louder. And with each ding from inside of his room, that light that was on inside of there would sort of pulsate. And you could see the light pulsating from underneath the door. And so John is getting more and more nervous as he's getting closer and closer to this door. And then right as he's about to touch the door and actually go inside, he hears a new sound. And it's coming from behind him. In fact, it's coming from downstairs. It was like this thumping sound, like something thick and meaty was like hitting the wooden floors over and over again. John's first thought was, maybe he left a window open downstairs and that was just the sound of the rain coming in. But as he's listening to this thumping sound that's getting louder and closer to him, making its way towards the stairs, he's thinking, that can't possibly be the rain. That does not make any sense. So he thought, oh, it's gotta be my dog. And so he called out to his dog again, this time much more urgently. Frankly, he wanted the comfort at this point. But the dog didn't come, and that thumping sound continued, and it began to go up the stairs. At this point, John knew he needs to go over and see who is now coming up the stairs. He has to go look. But he's paralyzed with fear. He's in the middle of this huge storm, the power's out, he has no idea what's going on with his wife and his kids, there's this escaped convict down the road, he has all these strange noises in his house, and so he just stands there completely unsure what to do. And then finally, as this thumping sound is right about to crest the stairs and be in the hallway, whatever or whoever it was, John turned and just threw open his door, figuring, you know what, at least if I go in my bedroom, I can shut the door and create space between me and whoever this is. But the second he charged into his bedroom, holding the flashlight over his head like a baseball bat, to confront whatever was in there, he just froze, because what he saw in front of him was horrifying. To understand what John saw and why it was so bad, you have to know that overall, John was a pretty nice guy. He was a good father, a good husband, he gave to charity, he took in stray animals. He was the kind of guy who would, if you drop money out on the street, he'd pick it up and give it back to you. He's a good guy. But there was one aspect of his life where John wasn't so nice. In fact, you could make the case that he was sort of a monster himself. John, in one very specific way, was sort of a bully. Every day for the last 5 years, John had been personally bullying and torturing this one victim online, and then also riling up other people to do the same thing. And so on this night, when he flew into his bedroom to escape whatever else was going on in his house, what he saw in his bedroom that was so awful was his victim. And he knew for sure that his victim was here for revenge. John's victim turned attacker was standing right there in the middle of his bedroom, clutching John's dog in their fist, like they were about to squeeze the life out of her. And at the same time, the loud thumping sound that John had run away from into this room that was coming up the stairs, well, John heard it thump against the door to the bedroom. And so John realized that must be another attacker. There's two of them, and now I'm gonna die. And so instinctively, John whipped around and just stared at this door, getting ready for whoever this was to enter the room. And as the door began to swing open, John closed his eyes and put his hands up around his head, bracing for impact. And he's standing there literally waiting to die. But nothing happens. And after a few seconds, John, he opens his eyes and he looks around and he smiles. It would turn out the monster of Cell Block C really had escaped from that state prison during that riot. And after they got out, they went to John's house. But the monster of Cell Block C was not a dangerous, horrible criminal, at least not to John. In fact, the monster of Cell Block C was one of John's oldest friends. And he had broken out of prison for one reason: to save John and his dog. Immediately after entering the bedroom, the monster of Cell Block C leapt onto the attacker who was holding John's dog hostage and managed to free the dog. The dog ran to safety, and then the monster of Cell Block C basically wrestled the attacker onto the ground and restrained them. And as they did this, John, who's sort of standing off to the side, is so relieved, but also he was suddenly inspired. And he had this idea that not only would defeat his attacker for good, but also would keep his friend, the monster of Cell Block C, from going back to prison. John turned and ran out of the bedroom and went into one of his kids' rooms where he grabbed a frog stuffed animal. He ripped the head off, and then he went back into his own bedroom and superglued the frog head onto the top of his attacker. John's attacker, the one he had bullied for so many years, who had come back for revenge, who was in his bedroom emitting pulsing lights and making dinging sounds and grabbed John's dog by their fist and held them hostage, was none other than the like button. John was actually John Allen, aka me, MrBallen. And with that frog head superglued on top of the like button, now they looked a whole lot like the monster of Cell Block C, which of course was my best friend, Seagull Lung. And so when the police showed up a short time later, they carted away the like button because they looked like the monster of Cell Block C. To this day, the like button is still serving out old Lungy's prison sentence. And as for old Seagull Lung, he's somewhere on a beach in Mexico. And now that this story is over, I can finally say, April Fools. With Lungy now safe on a beach, and the like button serving Lungy's prison sentence, I think it's safe to say that if you come after one of us, you face the wrath of both of us. So I have one thing to say to the like button, and that's, don't touch my frog. And so to celebrate that sentiment, and to celebrate April Fool's Day, we have an exclusive and limited merch drop. We have this sweet graphic t-shirt that's sort of a reimagining of one of all of our favorite movies. I'm sure you can see the inspiration. And on the front, it says, John Ballen, don't touch my frog, okay? Pretty cool. There's also a poster as well with the same graphic. All you have to do is head on over to shopmrballen.com to get yourself a piece of this sweet merch drop. Again, that's shopmrballen.com. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of today's episode in the comments. And remember, we have hundreds of videos for you to binge right now. But if you're looking for a recommendation from me of that one video that's worth your time, well, it's this one right here. So give it a watch. All right, until next time, see ya.